Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Shootin the Shit with Susan. I'm here with you today live for our weekly topic chat. I also do Q&A every other Friday. If you haven't yet had a chance, be sure to subscribe so you get notifications when I go live and when I have other offerings for you, my lovely subscribers. So happy to be here with you. Today, I want to talk about a little known solution for vaginal dryness. So if you're a woman out there who's experiencing that very common side effect of just that midlife transition, the menopausal transition or post-menopause where we start to lose lubrication, please tune in. If you're a man listening, I also want you to tune in because I've had some subscribers reach out asking for some help around what to do about erectile dysfunction. And so I'm going to speak more to women today, but men, I want you to listen up also because men and women have the same amount of erectile tissue in our genitals. We both genders need to have blood flow in order to have sexual arousal function properly. And so that very much is true for erections. As we know, it's mostly a blood flow event. But what I want to tell you that's not talked about very much, if at all, out there is really how vaginal lubrication actually works. We tend to be led to believe that it's all about hormones, right? So when our estrogen starts to drop, dryness and the thinning of the vaginal walls and the tissues is a very common side effect of that, because what the estrogen is doing is actually keeping the tissues plump and juicy and healthy and keeping the blood vessels and the capillaries nice and plump. And so when estrogen declines, we get what's called atrophy. And atrophy is just like what it sounds like. The muscles get kind of flabby, the blood vessels start to shrink, and the nerve endings also pull away from the skin. However, what we are not often aware of, especially when it comes to women's sexual health, is that blood flow is literally the secret sauce to staying lubricated and to keeping lubrication active no matter what your hormones are doing. So I'm actually I'm leading a class that starts next week called the Pleasure Revival Experience. And so I've been getting together some of my teaching materials for that class. Or it's a program, it's an 8-week program. And I have some scientific research that I found on this that actually proves that lubrication in the woman's body is not hormone dependent. It's actually a blood flow event. And they've done research on this on postmenopausal women, which I think is really notable because we need to be studying the women who are actually having the problem and have that drop in estrogen in order for this to really be relevant, I think, and make sense. So there's a study that was done on postmenopausal women where they found really they linked the vaginal lubrication was linked to blood flow specifically. And then another study, these are recent studies in the last 2 years, by the way, another study actually showed that even like a single set of pelvic floor strengthening, so muscle strengthening, I'm talking about like in and around the vagina. So not just like going to Pilates and doing sit-ups and doing bridge pose and stuff like that, but literally working the deep inner musculature that's around the vagina, that actually created an immediate increase in lubrication. That was just from even doing like one set. I don't actually remember what they did. I'd have to pull the study up again. Maybe this is like a set of Kegels or something. But what they found was that was like an instant change in the vaginal lubrication. And they had some kind of device to measure objectively the lubrication. So it wasn't just self-reported, like, yeah, I feel like I'm more wet. They actually had tools to measure lubrication in the vagina from doing these exercises. And so, why I love this? Well, number one, it really scientifically supports what I teach and what I'm teaching inside of the Pleasure Revival Experience course, which launches next week. That is for women at or beyond the midlife transition who want to learn how to revive what they've lost or maintain what they've got when it comes to our sexual vitality. We have scientific evidence really that backs up what I'm teaching in that course, which I think is so important because I think sometimes this stuff can kind of start to sound like, oh, it's just a little woo-woo. And, what does that really have to do with my hormones have dropped? And so the only way to fix this problem is through hormones. And I would just really why I kind of like to get on my soapbox here with this and say and disprove that is because not everyone can take hormones, number one. They're not a good fit for everybody for various reasons. Some people don't tolerate them well. Some people, due to medical conditions, cannot take them if they have certain hormone-dependent cancers, for example. And then some women, for example, with polycystic ovarian syndrome, sometimes the hormonal replacement or hormonal creams even are not effective for those women. And then there's just women that want to do things more holistically and more naturally. And really, I think the default go to is like just go on HRT, just take hormones, all about hormones, all about hormones. We are more than just a bunch of hormones. And so there is science out there that actually supports there are things that we can do where we are using what we already have. We're using our vagina, we're using our body, and we're taking back our power because when we're on an external product, or that's our only solution, or we're led to believe that's the only fix, we become dependent on that. We're not then free. And so the pharmaceutical companies would love to have you believe that they have the answer and that only answer is to take the drug or the shot or the cream or the pill or the hormone. And I want to just tell you that that's not the case. It's wonderful if that works for you. And if that's part of your holistic sexual vitality solution, I do believe we should use what's available to us. And it's an individual journey for everybody. But where I really love to get on my soapbox, as you probably know if you've been following me for any amount of time here, is really in these holistic solutions. So, vaginal strength training, learning how to strengthen what I call the pleasure core. Our pleasure core is more than just our muscles, it's more than just our nerves and blood vessels. It's more than just our hormones. The pleasure core also has an aspect to it of our energy flow. And most of the solutions that are out there for us when it comes to sexual vitality are heavily focused more on the physical. They're focused on obviously like solving things like hormones or even improving blood flow, which is awesome. Yes, that's a huge part of it, improving the blood flow through strengthening of the muscles. But most of them are ignoring this other third piece that is also an aspect of our sexual vitality, which is the aspect of bioelectric energy in the body. And this also is not woo woo. We have lots of science now that uses and works with what's called the biofield. So, working with our sexual energy, not just the hormones, the muscles, the nerves, and the blood flow, but also learning and understanding that we have these circuits of energy that flow through the body. You see this a lot more commonly in the Eastern traditions that have just more of a closer relationship with the energy pathways in the body, such as in acupuncture with the acupuncture meridians or the Shakti circuits, like we see in some of the tantric traditions. But it's really not so far out there. So even if you're like a little like, I don't know, that sounds kind of woo woo, the energy circuits, a lot of them run the same channels as our nerves do in the body. And so when we're in those states where we're having, for example, an energy orgasm or a full body orgasm or a heartgasm, these different types of orgasm that aren't localized in the genitals, a lot of times that's functioning through our nervous system, actually through some of the physical meridians, if you will, or pathways of energy that travel through the nerves in the body. I do like the woo. I don't always need the hard science to prove everything, but I think it's helpful for some of us that need to have a bit of a bridge there to make that connection. So I think so, a lot of those energy pathways do track the same paths as our nervous system, and I don't believe all of them do. I do understand just from the work that I've done over many many years, also with intuitive healing and doing more spiritual healing type of work, we have energy. We have an energy body around our physical body. And we also have channels of energy that flow not even on the physical body. So our nerves are like one pathway that energy information can travel, but we also have energy around us, like our aura, if you will, and energy pathways that flow that have nothing to do with the physical body per se. They're not traveling on actual physical structures like nerves, for example. So anyway, that is another aspect of our sexual vitality that often is overlooked. But my topic for today was about blood flow, this little known solution that can help women overcome vaginal dryness at midlife, menopause, and beyond. And one of the ways that that works, I want to explain sort of the mechanism of action of how blood flow creates lubrication. The reason I got so interested in discovering this and learning this was because I myself actually had an experience where I was not lubricating as much as I had been accustomed to. And I was like, oh no, I really don't, I don't want this to become a long-term problem. I really want to find a solution. And so one of the things that I stumbled across was this little sort of an esoteric feminine yoga practice called Pampoa. Some of you may have heard of that. Some of you might have no idea what I'm talking about. But it's basically a vaginal strength training program that allegedly was developed over in the South Asia in Singapore and was used by the sex workers to please their clients. So it was a way of strengthening the vaginal canal so that you could create all kinds of fun and funky, pleasurable sensations on a man's penis using your vagina, which I thought was so cool. I thought that sounds so fun. I want to have this rock star vagina. So, like, I want to learn this. Well, what happened was I learned how to do it and was very dedicated in my practice, but what I discovered was the results of it. Now, while it's very fun to be able to do tricks with your vagina on your partner's penis, that's really cool, but the benefit that I realized from that was far more related to my own pleasure. Um, it increased my lubrication just naturally to the point where I'm just sort of constantly wet, always turned on. And I started having really incredible orgasmic experiences where I could start to go into orgasms just from kissing my partner, from not even being touched, actually. And so that really led me to realize that this is something that, as women going through the midlife transition who are experiencing the loss of libido, challenges with orgasm, lack of sensitivity, and then this dryness and loss of lubrication, I really realized like this is a thing that can be used holistically that is so much fun to do, so pleasurable to learn, and it solves really all of those problems holistically without having to use a pill or a product or an expensive product. It's just a matter of learning how to do it and understanding the roadmap and the pathway. So that's really how I got interested in it. And then I wanted to start to understand, like, well, what's actually happening? Like, why am I lubricating more just from doing this? Well, come to find out what I've discovered and what I have found these scientific research studies that also support this. What's happening is we're increasing the blood flow to that area. Lubrication happens because the blood builds up and we become engorged, right? Through sexual arousal, we get engorged. We can also create engorgement through muscle stimulation in our genitals. That creates the blood. The plasma actually filters through the capillaries and then it turns in. They call it transudate in women. Transudation is the process of the creation of lubrication, which is created by the tissues becoming engorged with blood and pushing that plasma through the capillaries. That is literally like the wetness that we experience as women, and that's how it's created. So when we can get in control of the blood flow, we can literally get back in the driver's seat of our juiciness, our wetness, our sexual lubrication, and then all these other wonderful benefits that I myself have experienced where I started having really incredible orgasms and just that feeling of always being aroused and also being much more in control of our pleasure. Because when we can start to manipulate and control the muscles around our vagina and our pleasure core, we can actually begin to control our orgasm, take ourselves into orgasm. And that really goes to really whether or not we are with a partner or not. We don't need to be in an intimate relationship to experience our own pleasure and to keep our vitality, to keep our sexual vitality going, to keep those tissues alive and healthy. We have to use it or you do lose it. That's true. But I think a lot of times we think like, well, I have to have a sexual partner in order to be using it. And then what do you do if you're in a relationship and your male partner is having challenges with erection and cannot get an erection and hasn't found a solution yet to be able to resolve that? So we can't rely on sexual intercourse as the thing that's going to be like keeping us sexually alive. It's a great thing and it can be part of it, but it's not the whole picture. And so I really believe that we as women have the ability, and we should learn this, how to empower ourselves, how to learn how to do these vaginal pleasure core strength training, pleasure core practices. I call it the pleasure core, which is sort of the whole area down there. And these three components of the pleasure core, again, it's not just the physical, it's not just the hormonal. There's the third aspect that's often overlooked, which is the energetic. So when we learn how to really take control of that and take control of our pleasure, it is so much fun and we're able to really step into our own empowerment. We're not waiting around for a partner to do it for us. We're not becoming dependent on an external product or a pharmaceutical, that we really can start to take back our own pleasure and our own enjoyment through learning some of these practices. So, if this is resonating with you, if you're here watching and you're a woman who would like to learn how to maintain or regain your sexual vitality at midlife or way beyond, or if you're a man here watching and you know a woman, you have a woman in your life who maybe is having some of these challenges, it really can impact intimate relationships. I just hear so many stories of just a negative impact that can happen on the intimacy in a relationship when the woman goes through this midlife stuff. It can be really confusing, and there's just a lot of stuff out there that's thrown at us as solutions, and we don't know what works and what doesn't. I don't want to see the intimate relationship struggle. So, men, if you're watching and you know a woman or have a woman in your life where this is relevant for her, like, please pass this video along to her. I have the Pleasure Revival Experience starting next week. This is an 8-week program that I'm teaching. I'm going to teach you everything I just spoke to you about today. We are going to learn the pleasure core activation ritual. This is really where I teach you some of those practices that I learned to keep my sexual vitality online, juicy, alive, and vibrant. The wetness, the turn on, and the sensitivity, and then being able to have some of these really incredible orgasmic experiences that were really unlike anything I had experienced before. So there are scientific reasons for this, research that I share with you inside of that course that really supports what I'm teaching. But at the end of the day, this is about pleasure and it's about empowerment. I like to geek out on the science. That's not for everybody. I like to geek out on it. Sometimes I think it's really cool to find the things that support what we're doing and why we're doing it. But the main focus is on our own pleasure and on our own empowerment. So, anyway, that's coming up next week. And if you're interested in learning more about that, you can head over to my website at susanmorgantaylor.com/revival, or feel free to shoot me a DM if you'd rather, like, get some information that way. I'd be happy to send you the link or answer any questions that you have if you think you'd be interested in joining us for that experience. Again, we're starting next week. We go live next week on that. So be sure to head over to my website there and check it out and see if it's for you, or share this video with a woman that you know. But the point of today's conversation is really about this blood flow, and that we can get in control of our wetness and our sexual aliveness just through increasing blood flow into our pleasure core. Now, real briefly, I want to talk about what does this mean for men, because I know I'm really talking about women's sexuality right now, but some of you have reached out to me about erectile dysfunction, which is an exceptionally common challenge for men and men's sexuality. So first, I want to say, if you did not catch my deep dive that I did on Wednesday with Sam Itzaki of the Dr. Joe Kaplan Company, go check that out. That was the date on that was it was 2 days ago. So it was Wednesday, January 28th. You should be able to find that in my feed. We talked extensively about a solution that men can use if you're having challenges with erectile dysfunction. We talked about the penis pumps. I know I've done some videos here around the penis pump and the pussy pump and why they're so useful. It's because what the penis pump does is it increases blood flow into the penis. So all the things I just spoke about for women and how it helps with wetness and it keeps the tissues alive and vibrant, it helps bring blood into the area. The erections are highly dependent on blood flow. In fact, that's mostly what causes erectile dysfunction is the lack of blood flow. As we get older, the blood vessels shrink. Also, the veins, there's not as much tone in the muscles as well in that region. And so we need some of that tonification of the muscles, because the muscles contract around the veins slightly when we're aroused. That helps keep the blood in the penis. So you can have a situation, for example, where maybe you're able to get hard, but you can't stay hard. That's what's happening. Is the blood's getting there, but it's not staying there. And largely that has to do with weak pleasure core muscles. The muscles around the penis and in the pelvic core are weak. And so one of the ways for men to address that as well is through strengthening of some of the musculature of the man's pleasure core. And that's not an area that I really teach on or of my expertise, but I do have some wonderful colleagues who they are pros at that. So if you'd like, you can shoot me a DM. I'd be more than happy to send you their information. And hopefully I'll be having some of them here on the show with me. We'll be coming on and doing deep dives, maybe a couple times a month, where I'll bring in a guest and we'll shoot the shit about a different topic topic, I do intend to have some of these experts come in and we'll talk about men's sexual health and how do you keep erections. But blood flow is a huge part of it. And that strengthening of that pelvic core and the musculature around the penis is huge in helping to maintain the erections. And also helping to pump blood into the penis so that you can get an erection. So I just wanted to drop that in there because I know that that's such a common problem. Some of you have reached out to me asking for me to speak on that topic. But the conversation that I did with Sam on Wednesday on the deep dive is really great because he talks all about it. And we talk about how the penis pumps are an amazing, 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 amazing solution for men even if and especially if you've had prostate removal, if your prostate has been removed. I know someone wrote in to me asking if I'd speak to that, like, what do I do? His desire is still there, but now the challenge is actually just with the equipment, like not being able to get things to function properly without having the prostate. So the penis pumps are often a first course of action for people who have had prostate removal. Now, of course, I don't give medical advice. I am not a doctor. I am a sex therapist and specialist in women's sexuality. I'm not a doctor. So I want to be really clear. I'm not here to give you medical advice or tell you what to do. I'm here to share education and inspiration and hopefully encourage you to understand that there are solutions out there. So, absolutely, if you have any kind of a medical condition or you've had any kind of a surgery, you definitely want to check with your healthcare professional, with your doctor, and make sure that that's an appropriate solution for your unique situation. But by and large, the penis pumps, the ones that Sam sells and represents, are really, I think, top of the line for what's out there. So I like to try to share with you the things that I think are really the best of the best. I'm sure there's other good ones out there as well. We do discuss in that video what to look for. So Sam has tried, I can't remember, he gave a number, like over 49 different penis pumps, because he's kind of just like a a geek researcher like me, like, let's just see what's out there. Let's try new things. He knows like what the best of the best and has created a product that really sort of the culmination of all the best features of all of them. But you do need to be careful because there are products out there that are not great and that can injure you. And Sam shares his story a little bit about he tried one pump way back when he was first experimenting with things and it did injure him. Luckily not permanently, but nonetheless we really have to know kind of what we're getting into. Some of the penis pumps are more like sex toys and they're not necessarily made with safety in mind. So you really want to make sure you're getting a quality product. So we talk a little bit about what to look for. First of all, if you're out there shopping for a pump, you should know what to look for and what not to get and how to pump safely. But pumping is absolutely, if done correctly with a good product, it can be a very safe and effective way to keep the blood flowing into the genitals in an amazing way to keep our sexual vitality alive and online at midlife and beyond, and even before. So I love those of us that want to get ahead of the curve before things start to atrophy and shrink, and really work on maintaining what you've got. So that's a little bit in there for men, a little bit for women too. Women can do the pussy pumps. I've been playing with one. It's been really great and really helping with the external part of our genitals to stay plump and get lots of blood flow there. What I teach in the Pleasure Revival Experience, it's a course for women at midlife and beyond. We're working with the inner vagina, with the inner part of our pleasure core. So where I think the pumps are really great is that helps to bring the blood flow to the labia, to the vulva, to the external part. But then it doesn't do a whole lot for the inside, right? As women, all our stuff is on the inside and the internal. So when we learn how to really tonify the internal vagina and start to get movement and dexterity and pushing and pulling and squeezing and pulsing, all these wonderful sensations that we can create when we get greater control over our musculature in that area. It's absolutely incredible, and it really can help reverse some of those negative sexual side effects that happen as we go through that midlife transition, or if we're already way past it. You might be way past it already and be wondering if if there's some way to get that sexy part of yourself back online. Yes, there absolutely is. So if you'd like to join me for that, again, you can head over to susanmorgantaylor.com/revival and learn more about it there. We're starting next week, so be sure to head over there ASAP and see if it's for you. Feel free to shoot me a DM too if you've got some questions. I'm going to be on here with you live each week. I try to get on here every Friday, and then I'll be doing the deep dive where I bring an expert on. And those are going to be on Wednesdays, once or twice a month, but I'll give you a heads up on that before I go live. But be sure to subscribe. When you're a subscriber, you'll get the notifications of, the different things that I have going on here at Shootin the Shit with Susan. You'll get notifications of when I go live. And then, of course, you can jump into our community thread and let me know what kind of topics you would like me to speak on. Are there any particular topics or experts you'd like me to bring in? I always love to know what my community likes. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. I see everybody over there in the chat. It's always so lovely to see you and to know that you're here following along. Loving shooting the shit with you as always. And so I just want you all to go out there and go get it on. And I will see you next time.